shouldn't be here." The voice was louder now, clearer, and it was not her imagination. The words reverberated through her mind, growing more insistent. "Leave this place, Emily. They are coming for you." Emily spun around, her heart pounding. She was alone in the clearing, the trees standing still, the wind hushed. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was near, watching, waiting. The night of the shadows, that night, Emily locked the doors and windows of the cottage, determined to sleep without being disturbed. But sleep did not come. The shadows seemed to shift and move around her, no longer content to remain in the corners. They began to press against the walls, creeping closer with each passing hour. As midnight approached, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps outside her window, slow, deliberate, as though someone was walking in the garden. Her breath hitched in her throat, and she crept to the window to peer out into the dark. There, standing in the moonlight, was a figure, a tall, thin silhouette that blended with the shadows. Its eyes glowed an unnatural red, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin. It was the same figure she had seen in the mirror that first night, the same shadow that had haunted her dreams. Without thinking, Emily bolted to the door, but as she reached for the handle, the room grew colder. The air became thick with an unnatural energy, as if something was pressing against her from all sides. She turned, and in the mirror across the room, she saw the figure standing behind her, its reflection grinning at her, mocking her terror. With a scream, she turned and fled into the woods. Her feet stumbled over the uneven ground, her breath coming in sharp gasps. She ran blindly, her heart hammering in her chest, until she found herself at the edge of the clearing once more. The well loomed before her, but this time it was different. The air around it seemed to shimmer with darkness, and the ground beneath her feet felt unstable, as though the earth itself was about to swallow her whole. The whispers grew louder, and she could no longer tell if they were in her mind or in the air. They beckoned her to the well, urging her to step closer, to let them take her. In that moment, she understood. The well was not just a relic. It was a doorway, a gateway to something ancient, something malevolent. And the shadows were not simply watching her. They were waiting for her to open it. With a final desperate scream, Emily turned and fled back to the town. But the shadows followed, growing longer with each step she took. They would never let her go. The end? The next morning, the cottage was found empty. The door was wide open, and the windows shattered. When Emily first heard about Raven's Hollow, she had no idea that it would be the beginning of her descent into madness. It was a quiet town, hidden deep within the woods, a place so isolated that few had ever heard of it. The locals were friendly enough, but carried with them an odd sense of wariness, as if they knew something that Emily didn't. She had moved there in search of peace. After the chaos of city life, Raven's Hollow offered the solitude she craved. Emily rented a small cottage at the edge of the town, nestled by a dense forest that the locals always seemed to avoid. She heard whispers about the woods, the kind of rumors that made her skin crawl, but dismissed them as superstition. After all, she was a woman of science, a skeptic who had no time for old myths. One evening, as Emily was unpacking her things, she found an old journal wedged behind a loose floorboard. The leather cover was cracked, The pages yellowed with age. It seemed out of place in a house so modern. Curiosity got the better of her, and she began reading. The journal belonged to a woman named Eleanor, who had once lived in the cottage before Emily. The entries began innocently enough, detailing mundane events, work, meals, walks through the town. But as the days went on, the entries became darker, more erratic. Eleanor wrote of strange occurrences in the woods, voices in the trees, figures lurking just beyond the tree line. She wrote about feeling watched, followed, and then, increasingly, about the shadows that haunted her dreams. "I feel them tonight," one of the final entries read. "The shadows are closing in. I see them watching me from the trees. I have to leave this place, but I'm too afraid to move. Something holds me here." Emily couldn't help but feel a shiver crawl up her spine as she read the last lines. The words were unsettling, but she dismissed them as the ramblings of a woman who had been alone for too long. Still, there was something in the back of her mind that gnawed at her, urging her to heed the warning. The first night, that night, Emily lay in bed, her mind racing with the strange discovery. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. The shadows in the corners of her room seemed to move with the flickering light of the candle on her bedside table. She closed her eyes, tried to calm her nerves, but the feeling persisted. The darkness felt too heavy, too thick, as though it were pressing in from all sides. She rolled over, but when she opened her eyes, she saw something at the foot of the bed. A figure, a shadow. Its outline was indistinct, like smoke, but its presence was undeniable. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She blinked, and the figure vanished, but she could still feel its gaze on her. The weight of the air seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. Unable to sleep, she got up and went to the window. The moon was full, casting an eerie light over the forest. The trees seemed to stretch toward the sky, their branches twisted and gnarled like the hands of the dead. A strange noise echoed from the woods, a soft whisper, almost inaudible, but unmistakably there. "Emily," the voice whispered, though it felt as though it came from within her mind rather than from outside. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. The voice was low, familiar, and it called her name again. "Emily." She backed away from the window, her pulse quickening. This was all too much. Her mind was playing tricks on her, she thought. There was no such thing as ghosts, no such thing as shadows that whispered. But the fear in her heart was real. The following days, the next morning, Emily tried to push the events of the previous night out of her mind. She made a cup of tea and tried to distract herself with her work, but the feeling of unease lingered. As she stepped outside to get some fresh air, she noticed that the town was quieter than usual. There were no children playing in the streets, no laughter or conversation from the locals. It was as if everyone had vanished, leaving only the oppressive silence behind. Curious, Emily decided to take a walk into the woods. The path was overgrown, the trees blocking out much of the sunlight. It was unnaturally quiet, and as she walked deeper into the forest, the sense of being watched returned stronger this time. She could feel eyes on her, hidden within the darkness. She reached a clearing, and there, standing in the middle, was an ancient stone well. The moss covered the sides, and the top was cracked, as though time had taken its toll. The well seemed out of place, as though it didn't belong in the natural landscape. Emily approached it cautiously, drawn by an inexplicable force. Suddenly, the whispers returned.